A Small Saga of Mercia. In memory of Des Hughes, 1961 to 2017. The following fictional folktale took place in the region around the town of Staithen, known as Framland in the years before the Norman conquest. St. Guthlac's church is in Staithen, where Des was laid to rest. And now a small saga of Mercia. Penwall, noble of Mercia, rode into a small Framland wapentake farmstead. He was on his warhorse in full Viking battle regalia, his armor and mail glinting in the morning sunlight. He was leading an equally richly arrayed troop of elite Viking warriors. He pulled his horse up and pulling his blade from its wonderfully embellished sheath and he raised it high. This signal halted the men, and he called out, "Come out, you Anglo-Saxon terrorist filth, I'm here to take back the booty your cowardly knights stole from my weak serfs." He was a fine grey-haired figure of a man beautifully moustachioed with a fine oratorical voice, good for reading the sagas which he so enjoyed. He pointed at a small turfed-roof mud hut hovel which was nevertheless the largest building in the farmstead. "Look, there lies the Anglo-Saxon scum's magnificent castle, let's make a siege and take the knights' heads home and feast in our halls this evening." No one tried to dissuade him from his quest. Behind him as he stood high in his stirrups declaiming, his knights looked at each other rolling their eyes, shaking their heads and looking Valhalla-ward. One was ushered by the group forward to join Penwall. "Go on, Guthlac, we needs must carry out your plan now," one of the more senior knights said. Guthlac spurred his horse through the deserted farmstead. As Penwall ready to attack the hovel, Guthlac rode up beside him and declaimed, "Father, king of many daring exploits, do not endanger your royal blood. I alone will face the steel of this Anglo filth, they are not worth your highness's breath." The Viking knight continued, "I will venture into this lair of terrorists. These, the hated scum of England. I will, by your leave, great king, bring you the head of their traitorous chieftain Rotkelchen's head, that we may feast victorious and glorious this night in the great hall." Penwall looked at the younger man, pride in his eyes. "You are a true child of mine, Guthlac, a worthy heir," he bowed. "It is many years now that you have taken this burden away from my old body. Do your duty. My firstborn," he pointed his sword at a ragtag band of peasants fleeing as best they could with livestock over the rolling strips of fertile well-tended land. "See, the cowardly Anglo-Saxon army has fled already. I will then deal with the scum in the castle." Guthlac replied. Guthlac rode up to the cottage with his father's personal guard following. When they reached the hovel castle they dismounted, and turned to listen to their prince, who had drawn his sword and stood flourishing it, making mock thrusts and swings. He then stopped and pointing to the mud hut castle he moved forward. "I will enter this edifice of filth and single-handedly defeat the riff-raff Anglo-Saxon with cold Viking gallantry. It is the will of Odin, the king of the gods, and my father king of Framland, that the deeds will be done and written in the annals of the great sagas of our forefathers of the mighty north. Knights of the north, break the gates asunder with the battering ram." Grond. The knights brought up a huge battering ram with the head of a serpent, 6 men carrying it with difficulty. They staggered towards the hut and reduced the rickety door to splintered smithereens at a merest touch. "Stay, you knights," the prince ordered, waving his sword some more. Guthlac's knights withdrew, and he went into the hovel. His father sat on his war horse and shouted, "May the thunder of Thor aid you in your quest." The knights all looked at each other and shook their heads resignedly. Suddenly a lot of noise came from the mud hut. There was crashing and banging and shouts and screams. A couple of huge hogs ran from the hovel, which was soon dispatched by the crack troops. A golden eagle, a fine figure of a raptor, flew out of a rear window screeching loudly as it fled away across the rolling landscape towards the north. "Look, a foul dragon of the Anglo-Saxon!" shouted Penwall. "See how it flees." Guthlac emerged from the hovel covered in splashes of bright scarlet, holding a turnip-shaped head, dripping red, and an Anglo-Saxon standard. The knights all half-heartedly cheered. "See, father, we have vanquished the foe." Penwall's delight was clear. "I have destroyed their leader and gained his colors." He brandished the standard. See the head of the Anglo-Saxon filth's chieftain Rokelchan. He held high the turnip by its hair. It sported a painted face, and had straw hair, with red dripping all over it. From a distance it looked very convincing. Chieftain Rokelchan's personal guard are all slaughtered inside, he signaled to the guard standing near. They fought valiantly. Worthy Viking knights deal with their bodies in a Christian way as is their wont. He walked up to his father and bowed low. Sing you knights of Valhalla, for we shall return to our halls and feast on the meat of enemies. What of the rumored gold, my son? We will now ride forth while your knights load the sacks of gold into our wagon, until it be overloaded with wealth unimagined. Penwall glowed with paternal pride. The saga writers will commit this to vellum in illumined script as soon as we return in glory to the halls of Framland Wapentake. He said. What of the dragon, my son? He pointed to the north. I am sure I saw a worm of the English fly away in fear. The prince gestured grandly to the assembled troops. It is so, father. When the worm saw the flash of your sword and the wrath of your charge at the castle, he fled, the fire of his evil furnace extinguished. It is well, this shall be added to the great deeds done this day.